Let's discuss what's going on with Congressman Mike Lawler. He's a Republican from New York. Congressman, thanks so much for joining us. First of all, will you vote for Speaker Johnson's foreign aid bills as he announced the details today? And did Speaker Johnson do the right thing here?
Yes, I will be supporting the Speaker's legislation, inclusive of the bill, or two bills that I have long advocated for and introduced and passed through the House, the SHIP Act and the Iran-China Energy Sanctions Act. So I'm happy to see that included so that we can go after the source of Iran's funding of terrorism, the illicit oil trade. The Speaker did the right thing. We are the leader of the free world, and we must act. And by putting this legislation on the floor, the Speaker is showing leadership. He's showing resolve and courage, regardless of what the political consequences may be. And I think this is a moment for the institution as a whole to put politics aside and do right, not just by the American people, but by our allies around the globe. And so for all of us, my hope would be, number one, we advance this legislation, and number two, that any effort to remove the Speaker for doing the right thing is thwarted, because the institution cannot function under that type of threat where any one member can exert their will or substitute their judgment over the majority of not just the Republican conference, but of the House.
You know, I'm looking at the summary of all the details of these various aid packages for Ukraine, Israel, Taiwan, as released by the Speaker of the House. And what jumped out at me, that all of the aid for Ukraine, $61 billion or so, he says would be converted into a loan as opposed to an outright U.S. grant. Is that okay with you?
Yes. Look, we have to find compromises along the way to build consensus. We live in a constitutional republic. We're never going to get every aspect of what we want. I think President Zelensky has made it clear he is fine with a loan. And if this is what builds consensus to get this across the finish line, frankly, that is the least of my concerns. We need to get the lethal aid to Ukraine, to Israel, to Taiwan in this challenging time. Russia, China, and Iran have engaged in an unholy alliance that seeks to undermine and destabilize the free world. And we have a responsibility as leader of that free world to bring our allies together, to support them in their time of need. If we shirk in that responsibility, then we cease to be that leader that nations can count on and rely on. And you will see a new world order in which China, Russia, and Iran are the driving force around the globe. And that just cannot be. It's not good for America. It's not good for the world. And so this is critical to get this across the finish line. And if it requires having language in the bill that makes it a loan, I'm fine with that.
You make important points, Congressman. How does all this infighting among your fellow Republicans reflect on your party? And are you worried it potentially could cost the GOP some seats and even potentially control of the House of Representatives come November?
Well, the reality is control of the House of Representatives is based on districts like mine, a district Joe Biden won by 10 points that has 80,000 more Democrats than Republicans. I am willing to do what is right by our country to represent my district. I respect my colleagues and their perspective on this legislation, which is why they will get an up or down vote on it. If they don't want to support Ukraine funding for whatever reason, they can vote no. That is their right. But they don't have the right to substitute their judgment for that of the majority and that of the Speaker, who was elected by the membership. We have a responsibility to govern. The American people put Republicans in charge of the House to serve as a check and balance. I think the Biden administration has had a disastrous foreign policy, in particular with respect to Iran, and we need to hold them accountable. And that's why I've introduced the SHIP Act and passed it through the House to ensure sanctions are in place. But we can't get that critical legislation across the finish line if we can't find ways to compromise. And so this legislation that the Speaker has put forth brings a compromise bill to the floor in a divided government in which the Senate is controlled by Democrats, the House by Republicans. And for my colleagues that continually seek to undermine the majority, what they fail to recognize is that the very issues they care about have zero chance of becoming law if they are not willing to work together as a team. The border is critical. I support legislation that would secure our border. The Biden administration has failed to secure our border and, in fact, exacerbated the crisis at our southern border. 10 million migrants crossing since Joe Biden took office. But the inability of my colleagues to compromise is what is stymieing the ability of the Speaker to get border security in this negotiation. And so that really, to me, they should be looking in the mirror rather than attacking the Speaker or, folks like me who are on the front line and delivered this Republican majority.
Republican Congressman Mike Lawler of New York, thanks as usual for joining us.
Thank you.